Hey everyone, this is Joshua Kirk here with you once again, and now it's time for episode 109 of Album of the Day, in which, I'm going to go back to reviewing some newer records from this year, since I'm now back from camp, and I made a plan to do throwbacks until, I go to camp, but now I'm back home and, I'm ready to review some more newer records, so here we go. So today's band is an emo and pop punk band from sort of an indie group from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, that have put out a few records and have pretty much been around since 2010 or something like that. So they're kind of an up and coming group. That's kind of a small group that still needs maybe a little more attention. But the name of the group is Modern Baseball, and I'm here to talk about their new record that just came out a month ago on Run for Cover Records. Their second album on that label, their third studio album, which just came out in May of this year. The album is called Holy Ghost. And this is my CD copy of the record. I actually picked this up at Soundgarden. So far, the only two new releases that I've picked up from that store have been the new Dr. Dog album, which I reviewed 9 episodes ago at least, and this album over here, which I bought last time I was there. But anyway, here's the cover art, the spines, and there's the back of the album. And they released a couple of albums before this, 2012 Sports and 2014's You're Gonna Miss It All. Anyway, here's the disc, and it says For Papa. I don't know whose Papa it is that the album is dedicated to. But anyway, here's the booklet, which has all the lyrics in it. And photos of the bands performing live, and then there's the credits and thank yous and everything. Excuse me. Yeah, and that's the CD copy of Holy Ghost, the new album from Modern Baseball. Now, in the past I've been kind of critical, kind of cold-shouldered about, the current crop of emo bands. I just feel a lot of them don't really bring anything new to the table. Instead, they just copy every idea from every seminal emo band from, the 90s and the 2000s, except way less songwriting talent is the only difference. Modern Baseball, however, I feel are the opposite of that. They are not reinventing the genre, so if you're expecting a big reinvention, you may be disappointed, but at least they definitely have talent, both in songwriting and an ability to create very catchy, poetic, pop rock tunes. There's some emo, there's some indie roots going on in this record. If you're into some of those some of those emo acts from the Saddle Creek label, you might find something you'll enjoy on here. Or there's a bit of pop punk roots on this record. I mean, if you like Green Day, you might find something you'll enjoy on here as well. And also so they definitely have the ability to create some very good, some very likable, clever, entertaining, pieces of emo music. Now, the record opens with the title track, Holy Ghost, which is basically just an intro track to the record, acoustic guitar, and basically, the beginning of the story of the album sort of coming in pretty much. Also, the first half of this record was written by Jacob Ewald, one of the co-founders of this group, and the second half was written lyrically by Brendan Lukens, the other co-founding member of the band. And of course, they both play guitar and sing on here, and like and so like following that little intro track is the song "Wedding Singer," which has this really nice, just very earwormy guitar riff. The me 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 me. It's like, a riff that's bound to get stuck in your head, for sure. And the lyrics on this track, there's a lot of middle class references on here, but it's definitely self-aware enough that it's definitely relatable. And for me as a teenager, it's kind of hard not to relate to it. And I like how they're just not too melodramatic with it. That's another problem I have with a lot of modern emo today. A lot of it's really melodramatic and kind of excruciating. But this, on the other hand, is, just very well done, But, this band, however, executes these songs really nicely to make them tangible for the listener. And then, of course, this track has a great sing-along chorus to it as well. That's definitely bound to make you want to sing along, like when you're in the car or stuff like that. Just a great song, and definitely one of the best ones on the record. That track is pretty much flawless at most. And then you get into the track "Note to Self," which has which kind of is a song about the protagonist is going through a hard time in his life. I mean these lyrics definitely have themes of like growing up and depression and frustration and stuff like that. And while these lyrics aren't necessarily original and inventive, they definitely are relatable still. The lyrics on "Note to Self" are a perfect example of that. The narrator's trying to find some inspiration, but all he finds are just empty cans and cigarette butts. So there's a little bit of wordplay going on this on this track that I think is pretty clever. And then of course, the ending of that track is really kind of menacing and almost just kind of visceral. And really kind of visceral with, lyrics about just being, just kind of worthless sometimes. And Jacob Uwald, gets really kind of emotional on this part. He's kind of screaming into the microphone a little bit, especially, to the point where he's kind of screaming into the microphone a little bit, but yet it definitely sounds very, very nice on there and fits, and you can really feel sort of the pain that he's feeling. So that's what really makes the song "Note to Self" just a fantastic, very, very strong cut on the album. And it kind of deals with a relationship and and it kind of talks about a relationship where the couples kind of try to get along, and and the narrator's significant other kind of made all the words that she always used to say on there, it's definitely one of the best songs on the record because it's pretty relatable, for sure. The next track on here is called "Mass," and it's kind of a song about the song sort of reflects on how how badly the protagonist sort of misses life when it was a little more kind of easy, because now it's life's getting harder because his girlfriend moved away, and he's talking about how he misses making coffee together. He finds sleeping in his sleeping in their bed without her isn't isn't the same, because he had a really hard time sleeping, and he's talking about how sometimes he wishes that it was still last summer when everything was mostly thing was mostly fine, and back when his significant other, like, who moved away to Massachusetts, was still living in South Philly, and like when he wasn't playing a show in like in Nebraska or Austin, Texas, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of a song about kind of sort of how we all kind of miss kind of kind of it's kind of a song kind of about how life ain't the same as it like used to be, and stuff like that. So yeah, while it is one of the shorter tracks on the record, it's still definitely one of the standout tracks for me on this record. And then there's the song Every Day. While it's probably less of a standout, it's still a good track, and in this one the protagonist sort of like was given tiny tastes of truth, and like he was starved, but yet his girlfriend, who had recently left him, was kind of full of that. And he drives back home when home when she gets sicker, and also it kind of and it does sort of reflect on sort of it does kind of reflects literally on tough situations, like there's a lyric in there where about someone's face was flushed, and it sticks in the narrator's mind, and like the waiter asked if maybe she was high or something like that, when in reality it's just kind of the looks you get when life is just kind of discombobulated a little bit because of so many changes going through in your life. So coming of age, as well as life constantly changing, was definitely a common theme on this album for sure. So yeah. Sure. And of course, like, and the song, and of course, the song Notes itself has a great chorus, and it kind of reflects on the narrator, trying to make something good, or make something better. He's longing for, sort of, something better in his life, and I like that about it, as well as having a really great sort of chorus on there too. And and the song Mass has a kind of a fun kind of it's definitely one of the tracks that has that more of kind of the pop punk sort of vibe to it. But yeah, I think it sounds pretty nice on there. Following the song Every Day is the song Hiding, which is like the softest track on the whole record. It starts out with like a little guitar riff along with Jake Uwald's vocal, which the vocals on this record sound really crisp, although they're not so distinct that I could instantly pick them out of a lineup. Hiding is one of the more sort of, lyrically kind of depressing tracks on the whole record, so I think it's kind of intimate sort of feel to it. I think fits in with how kind of, sort of kind of the intimate feeling that you're getting from these lyrics about like drinking a lot and dancing to The Cure, and holding on to the frayed edge of a feeling that was misplaced years ago, and he kind of finds some nights that the ideas that still bring him rest are the ones that used to like keep him up at night, stuff like that, and so it's kind of a heart-wrenching song, but really a beautiful moment, and this track also has a few weirder kind of instrumental elements to it. Like there's like this sort of droney sort of air organ or cello or something like that I'm hearing, or something like that. Because like earlier I think it's a cello, but it actually sounds more like an air organ kind of after that. And as well as having these kind of sudden, like distorted, grainy drum samples going on in certain parts of the song, as well as this kind of, as well as, kind of this, like, as well as kind of these looped kind of feedback noises going on there. Well as some looped feedback noises going on in there as well. And I love that part at the end where it just kind of builds up. It just goes into just this really epic, cathartic, just like emo rock jam. Like, that, just sounds great. But I like how they kind of allow the song to breathe initially, so you could be able to sort of focus on the lyrics. So that's why I think this is definitely a great track on the album. And then it, of course, closes with, the looped feedback and, stuff like that. And so that's the end of the first half where Jake Ewald handles the writing. Now we get into the second half where Brendan Lukens is at the lyrical sort of, content here. And we start that with the song "Coding Needs to Lukens," which, to be honest with you, I do like the song. It's got a kind of good sort of, catchy sort of feel to it. But I just feel that it is one of the weaker tracks on the album. I mean, the lyrics and the sound of it is like okay, but it's so short that it just kind of breezes by me and doesn't really stick with me. The same thing with the next track, "Breathing in Stereo." Like, I mean, the guitars have kind of grown on me a little bit. Just, I wasn't really connecting with the lyrics all that much, and also kind of breezed by me in kind of a aggressive, forgettable sort of, fashion a little bit. But I do really like the track "Apple Cider I Don't Mind." It is one of the stronger tracks on the second half of the record, and one of the better tracks when it comes to the shorter ones on here. It's kind of a song about, sort of, trying to, sort of wondering that if, his relationship with this girl was like, wondering if it's like past or present, and he can't seem to make it all out, and sort of wondering what he's done now. Wondering what he's done now. Yeah, so he's kind of, because it kind of leaves him a kind of betrayal of, fun a little bit. And there's some wordplay on this track. Like, there's some pretty clever wordplay on this track. Like, biopsy from the origin of sound confirms you're speaking truthfully and concludes everything I've thought about. And also, I love that kind of catchy little mantra at the end. Tell me this is forever. Tell me this is for... but, it kind of ends abruptly, there, which I think is kind of strange since, it's got a catchy little mantra at the end. And, it's definitely one of the catchiest songs on the album. It has this nice little, sort of almost dancey, taka 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 drum beat on it, as well as, this pretty nice little kind of, bright, sunny guitar riff. So that's what makes it one of the better tracks on here when it comes to the shorter ones on here. The song "What If" is another track on here that, kind of, breezed by me a little bit. Although I thought the lyrics and the chorus were pretty decent. It's another track that just kind of, breezed by me because of how short it is, pretty much. Much. So, but then it closes with one of the best songs on the record, one of the longer tracks on here, the song Just Another Face, which, has some lyrics about, like, self-doubt and just feeling the need to change yourself from the inside because of all the problems you used to have back then. Then, and, he kind of, and, the protagonist kind of, doesn't know how he got there because he's, like, sort of meandering unwanted days and, traveling light endlessly and drifting through his selfish ways, although he doesn't really want to. And plus, the chorus on this track is amazing. Like, easily one of the best choruses on the album, to the point where sometimes you might just want to howl along with Brendan Lukens when he sings, I'm not just another face, I'm not just another name. You can really feel his emotion on this track, and he really lets it all out on this track, and, the best way on this track, for sure. For sure, making it a very powerful way to close the record. And then, of course, it ends with the weird little feedback noise, going on there, and pretty much that's the end of the record. So overall, I do think this is a great emo record. It's definitely the best emo record that I've heard in a while, but it's kind of a I do have a few issues with it. Of course, I mentioned that I didn't really care as much for the shorter tracks on the album. Although I thought they were pretty. Although I thought some of them were pretty decent. And some were actually really good, I will admit, what I just mentioned there. And the song, and also, like, it's kind of a criminally short album, unfortunately. It's only 27 minutes long, and 7 minutes long, but still I feel like in that running time, there's still some good moments going on this album. And, album. Also, maybe another issue I have with this record is that, it kind of sounds like every single, like, significant emo band out there, but, yet, not in a bad way, in a pretty good way. It's definitely a great record that kind of celebrates what made emo such a great genre in the 90s and the 2000s. It's kind of there's a sense of catharsis to this record, and just letting it all out that I really do admire about this record. So, and also there's a couple other instrumental, things going on in here, like, they're on the song Wedding Singer, we're getting this organ that sounds as if maybe it was taken out of a song from the 60s or something like that. And then, of course, you have Every Day, which has this kind of, buzzy bass synth in the background. So, like, yeah, I do think this is a great record, Some emo purists might think that this record is maybe too poppy and nothing altogether new. And yeah, it is a poppy emo record, and it doesn't bring anything really altogether new, but still, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world, as long as there's some good, memorable, relatable songs on here. So, overall, I'm going to have to give this record maybe a 7 out of 10. And I know that's not necessarily the highest rating, but I still do recommend you check out this record. If you want just, if you miss sort of that catharsis that emo used to have back in the day, and you want something that's relatable, I do recommend you check out this record. So, that's my review of the album Holy Ghost, the new album for modern baseball. I'll see you for episode 110.